Hello, my name is Carlos Pereira de Cruz, and this is the podcast 15 Minutes of Pharma. Welcome. Well, our guest is someone who has lived this industry from the inside, from fermentation tanks to factory floors, from FDA audits to complex turnaround projects. Manuel Fernandes is an API specialist, former industrial director, and consultant with decades of hands-on experience. So, in the previous episode, we discussed how the pharmaceutical value chain was rebuilt. And today's episode is about antifragility, regulatory arbitrage, and the risk of losing the industrial core. So, today I want to start asking a harder question to Manuel. So, Manuel, the word antifragility comes up frequently in strategic discussions. What does anti-fragility means in the context of CDMOs?
Well, Carlos, let me start by thanking you for having me for episode number 4 of our 15 Minutes of Pharma. And going directly to your question, I would say I would start by talking a little bit about resilience. Resilience means surviving shocks. The concept of antifragility pushes, this concept of resilience a little bit further. So antifragility means improving because of shocks. So, in a world of geopolitical tension, capital volatility, supply chain disruption, companies cannot afford just to absorb risk. So they need to find a way to learn from disruption and to strengthen their position. And so for European CDMOs, the obvious conclusion is, if we cannot compete on structural cost, we must compete on complexity.
Yeah, I see. Something like going up the value ladder. So
Correct.
the move toward advanced therapeutics like biologics, complex CMCs, well, that seems rational, right?
Absolutely, Carlos. Absolutely rational. I would say that it is even necessary. Competing in, as you said, advanced therapeutics, proteins and biologics, complex formulations, and being able to to promote or to enter into early integration with sponsors. All this is strategically sound. But it is here where anti-fragility, in my opinion, has a blind spot.
Well, that's new for me. So really new. Okay, linking these two words, anti-fragility and blind spot. So what's the blind spot?
Carlos, anti-fragility at the company level does not, in my opinion, automatically translate into anti-fragility at the system level. Uh, you know, a firm can improve its return on capital by exiting commoditized manufacturing. But, if an entire region does so simultaneously, the industrial ecosystem may lose capacity faster than any individual firm gains efficiency. So a CDMO can become more capital efficient by exiting low margin manufacturing. But if many companies make the same rational decision, the industrial base shifts, and that's where, in my opinion, the risk begins.
Okay, makes sense. So and another topic is that you introduce regulatory arbitrage as a critical variable. Why?
Yeah, indeed, Carlos. Because the level playing field, is not defined by market access only. Um, it is defined by establishing and enforcing equivalent rules for everyone. And global pharmaceutical manufacturing has expanded well beyond the capacity of regulators like the United States FDA or the European Medicines Agency to oversee all them in a comprehensive way. So, inspections are risk-based, which means that coverage is partial. So this creates space, even unintentionally, for regulatory arbitrage. And regulatory arbitrage affects where production and learning accumulates. And over time, Carlos, capital flows toward the jurisdiction where cost, enforcement asymmetry, and scale interact most efficiently. And where capital flows, learning compounds.
Um, so Manuel, I don't know if you remember, but when we start working together, perhaps in 2007, we had some conversations, some very interesting conversations about Clayton Christensen's innovator dilemma. It's a topic that you like to speak about. So how does that apply here in this case for CDMOs?
Yeah, Carlos, I remember perfectly, and well. My view is that Christensen showed that rational short-term decisions can undermine long-term capability. And if we translate this to pharma, it looks a little bit like this. Take the example of, for instance, tablets, capsules, and mature APIs, which we can easily label as non-core. These are, areas on which the margins are thin, and capital intensity is still high. So there is a clear incentive for the operators to transfer this kind of production to different geographies with lower costs, so that they can, somehow turn their balance sheets more robust. Uh, what most of the times is underestimated is that with this transference, with this migration, we transfer as well, process know-how, all the tacit CMC expertise, um, scale up know-how and capability, and all the industrial learning around these operations. So manufacturing is not just execution; it's really a learning system. And when execution moves, learning moves as well.
Yeah, I think that's so profound, Manuel. Yeah, really profound from me. I think so. Manufacturing is not just execution; it's a learning system,
It's a learning
and
system indeed.
yeah, and when execution moves, that this learning capability moves also. Yeah. So, and you suggest that we're seeing this play out already. Is that so?
Yes, Carlos. I would say yes, undoubtedly. China is no longer just a manufacturing base. It started as a manufacturing base maybe some 20, 30 years ago, but now it's really evolving into something really different. We can say that China is now a pharma foundry. So China now boast real strong capabilities in integrated process development, uh, in CMC optimization. They are really strong in scaling up manufacturing operations. So Carlos, we can say that this didn't happen. China didn't become a pharma foundry by accident. uh, they became one because scale, repetition, and iteration were allowed to concentrate there for decades. And um, and scale is not just output. Scale is about it's about learning velocity, and learning velocity somehow determines where innovation concentrates. Take,
Mhm.
for instance, the example of the deal that was recently announced between AstraZeneca and CSPC
Okay.
for the GLP-1 deal. This is not really a capacity deal. It's in reality a technology licensing deal. So what this deal shows us is that innovation is flowing back to the West, if you will, not as competition, but as it's a license dependence of sorts. So,
Mhm.
in my view, that's a really structural shift.
Okay. Yeah. So, what is the real strategic risk for European CDMOs in this situation, in this context?
Yeah, that's really a great question, Carlos. And I would say that the risk is not outsourcing manufacturing. Uh, the risk is really outsourcing the feedback loop between manufacturing and innovation. If Europe moves up market while allowing the industrial middle to somehow to hollow out under asymmetric regulatory conditions, then antifragility simply collapses because antifragility requires retained learning density and learning density requires execution scale and
So, Manuel,
yeah
what do you mean by learning density?
well learning density means, for instance, suppose that in first place in the West you have companies producing those tablets, those capsules,
Mhm.
those low margin APIs, and there is an ecosystem around all that production. There are the companies that are manufacturing those products, and there are suppliers and supply chains that are
Yeah.
related and intermingled with those
Okay.
companies. If you move, if
Packaging, plastic bottles and things like that.
exactly
Yeah.
packaging materials,
Packaging
uh,
materials. Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
uh, primary packaging materials, secondary packaging materials,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know, support, maintenance,
Yeah.
whatever is necessary
So
to keep
learning
those
density is
operations.
that all that ecosystem that is working together. Okay.
It's a very
Okay.
complex ecosystem, and if you just displace and move that ecosystem to another place, that compounding is still happening,
Hmm.
but is going to happen in another place. So you would
Hmm.
not benefit any longer from that tacit
Okay.
that tacit learning generation,
Okay.
and that comes
Okay.
back. It will flow back as innovation.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were saying that this learning density was somehow or requires some
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
execution scale. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it
my
was
point
something
is
like
that,
that you were saying.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
correct. I was saying that antifragility requires, or I was arguing that antifragility requires retained learning density. And this learning density requires execution scale a little bit because of the situation that we have just described. So, Carlos, I would say that antifragility at the system level requires three things to happen simultaneously. We must have some distributed capability, so a host of companies able to produce that a determined category. We need the same rules for everyone, meaning regulatory symmetry. Everyone is subjected to the same rules, and we need obviously to retain that learning density. We need that the learning that results from that ecosystem to be transformed in innovation in the original space. So, Carlos,
Mhm.
if learning concentrates asymmetrically under cost arbitrage conditions, the system may become more efficient, but will undoubtedly become less anti-fragile. So, efficiency, we should not mistake efficiency for anti-fragility. One thing is efficiency, another thing very different is anti-fragility. And scale without redundancy is not anti-fragility. And optimization is not anti-fragility as well.
Mhm. So normally I see people mentioning efficiency and anti-fragility because of saying that efficiency is not so anti-fragile because of long supply chains that may, due to context, due to several issues, may break at some moment. But now you present it in another way, not so the long supply chain, but that learning density, that knowledge that can be lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the dilemma here? As Clayton Christensen mentioned, what's the dilemma here?
Yeah, well, Carlos, I would say that, and that should not be a question. Well,
Mm-hmm.
European CDMOs must move into complexity, no doubt at all about that. That is non-negotiable. But
Okay.
we would argue that they must do so without, eroding the industrial base that makes, long-term learning possible. And I would say that the question is not should we pursue complexity. The question really is can we pursue complexity without hollowing out the learning engine beneath it? And if we cannot do this, are we really building anti-fragile firms but inside a fragile system? I think that's the
Yeah.
question that we have to
Let's
put to
Okay.
ourselves.
Okay. Yeah. So let's use that as the hook for the next episode. But before finishing the podcast today, Manuel, I have here a surprise for you. So this morning, this morning I was checking the Financial Times, and I have it here the clip. So I was checking the Financial Times, and I saw an article called. China laboratories pull ahead as global drug makers invest in biotech pioneers. So today is February 24th. So I read that. So something like China accounts for more than half of early stage ADC pipelines and signed over $85 billion. So I believe here this billion is American billion in licensing deals in the last year. So the question is no longer whether China can manufacture. The question is whether Europe is unintentionally exporting its learning velocity. Well, this is right in
Well,
bullseye with our conversation of today.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, Carlos, I would say that is really a momentous article because somehow I think that it proves the main argument that we are trying to defend here on episode 4. And really, well, I read it as the predictable next chapter. I think that evolution is going
okay.
to be in that direction, no doubt about that. Well, for years we discussed China as a manufacturing base, then as a geography which can scale the operation almost without limit, and now we are seeing China as a development base. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that this is something we are seeing something structural. Yeah, these Chinese
Yeah.
groups, as you just referred, account for more than half of new ADC drugs in early clinical trials. And so
Yeah.
this means that Western pharma is not just outsourcing manufacturing; it's licensing innovation, and I think this is
Yeah.
what the AstraZeneca CSPC deal
Yeah.
means, and
Yeah.
well, all the deals that are referred in that article as well. So this is not transactional; it's really
Yeah.
something structural that we are seeing.
Yeah. And I think it makes these conversations that we are having or about this evolution much more relevant. It's not just two guys in a kind of a dilettante conversation. No, this is really something
It's
very very important in this moment
indeed,
in the
Carlos.
industry. Yeah,
Indeed,
yeah,
it's happening. It's really happening, and yeah, as we were just saying, manufacturing is a learning system, and
yeah,
just to when we see scale and repetition and capital and regulatory throughput concentrate in China for long
yeah,
enough,
yeah,
we can only expect
yeah.
that
The
innovation
compounding
will
makes
flow back.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So Uh, Thank you, Manuel. So, in the next episode, we'll connect this to pricing power and ownership, total cost of ownership. Because in complex systems, what looks cheaper upfront often looks or often turns out to be the most expensive option of all. Okay, so um, Manuel, do you want to say anything more just to for closing the episode?
Carlos, it's been a pleasure to be here with you
Mm,
for this episode and talking about these so
mm,
interesting and momentous subjects. And well, I want to thank you and to everyone that listened to us today. And thank you for your
yeah,
attention. And any comments or any feedback is obviously most welcome.
yeah, yeah,
We welcome
yeah,
your feedback, and ideas and comments are obviously most welcome. Thank you, Carlos. Thank you
yeah.
very much.